In conclusion, we have looked into what nervous system dysregulation is and how it is being dealt with in our modern ways of living. Using the agency we do have, most people are changing the chemistry of their body to avoid the physical sensations which they find uncomfortable and or unbearable, or they might be running away from the context in an attempt to relieve themselves of the interaction between their learned choices and people, places and things around them. With the curve of growth of nervous system dysregulation moving in an upward trend, are we turning the corner in the way we are seeking solutions? Are we desperate enough yet to try something that is not of the modern world we are entrained to know and love? In part 2, I shared my personal experience of how I've grown into the skills and knowledge which I use to assist people in their own growth and change. We learned that therapy has 2 parts. The part which the modern-minded person focuses on is the type of therapy being used. The second part is still dealt with in a very haphazard manner. Finding what to apply the chosen therapy to is still a mystery to almost all when it's focusing on the mind. This broad approach, like stabbing in the dark, is all the therapist has to work with, unless they learn to read subtle human energy. I have a direct approach to locate what needs to be healed, and in the coming section I shared a little more about how therapy doesn't actually do the healing. It only allows for it. The mind heals itself if the right context is given to it, just like physical healing. The point I briefly made regarding importance and urgency as states of mind was slightly underrated in the article. It likely needed an entire section to itself. The perception a person has will always determine their focus. If a learned choice becomes known as important, it can still be relegated to the deal with it later pile of things to do. Once the perception turns a corner to urgency as well as important, then it stays at the top of that pile of to-dos. All of a sudden, the mind has pressed some kind of button that tries to find the solution to this urgent problem. It is recognition that the ego is not managing to keep the entire system safe in this one regard, and an additional solution is required. The mind begins to need to learn something new. Once it becomes known in the modern world that one's mind healing is essential to be able to live peacefully and joyfully while on purpose, then hopefully people will begin to access the essentials I've written about that create the context for healing of the mind. And as the mind plays a very large role in how the body functions, hopefully once the mind is paid attention to in regard to having its wounds healed, maybe, just maybe, our bodies will live in more peace and harmony also. The final part in the series speaks about triggers and how they play a very large part in our lives. It is important to know we are due our agency to heal the mind. But what is more important is to understand the system we live in and how to work with it to create a better experience. De-triggering yourself first requires an understanding that once your mind submits to a learned choice, it's also submitting to a sacrifice of free will. Of course, only in regard to that one learned choice. Only you can decide if the sacrifice is too much or too often. When you're ready to know how to undo what you once did, then the way to move forward will seem a lot clearer. My last point of reminder is that no matter what, your mind is yours to make and remake as you please. What you have learned in your youth can be changed by you in your adulthood, when you feel you must, need, or want to. You do not have to patiently wait out your time until your end date. Your mind and its learning is what drives your behaviors and your perceptions in regard to your relationship between you and each and every other person, place, or thing, including ideas. Once you master your mind, you can adjust and readjust until you feel you're the master of your life. And in my heart, I tell you this not for you to have read it in a book, but for you to bring these ideas which I have lived into my own knowing, into your own knowing, from your own testing and playing with your own mindscape. I truly believe we are here with all of our tests and lessons, our challenges, pain and suffering, to use these experiences to learn and upgrade ourselves into mastery of our own minds. There is no need to be anyone else's master. There is no need to control what is outside of us if we can take control of what is inside of us. I send you all blessings. Go forth and play with all that you have full permission to play with. Take care. Much love. Joanna Ruth, over and out. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth from Tarot with JoannaRuth.Online. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth, and this is your doorway to spiritual literacy. Why not come on in and learn some foundations together?